The night sky above the lunar observatory was darker and more beautiful than anything on Earth. Dr. Alan West liked that about his job. No light pollution, no clouds, just the pure view of countless stars. Tonight, though, something was different. Alan leaned closer to his monitor, rubbing his tired eyes. For 6 hours straight, he had been studying the same signal. It wasn't like the normal patterns from stars or the background noise of the universe. This was structured. This had meaning. "You're still here?" Lisa Gordon walked into the lab with 2 cups of coffee. "It's past midnight, Earth time." Alan accepted the coffee with a grateful nod. "Look at this pattern. It repeats, but with variations that can't be natural." Lisa set her cup down and moved closer to the screen. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her eyes narrowed as she studied the wavelength patterns. As the observatory's communications specialist, she had seen all kinds of space noise. This was something new. "Where is it coming from?" she asked. "Andromeda Galaxy, about 2.5 million light-years away." Lisa whistled softly. "So whatever sent this did it when our ancestors were still figuring out stone tools. And it just reached us now." Alan pointed to a specific pattern on the screen. "See these sequences? They're mathematical. Prime numbers first, then what looks like geometric formulas. No natural phenomenon creates patterns like that." The realization hung in the air between them. After decades of searching the skies, humanity had finally received a clear sign. They were not alone. "We need to tell someone," Lisa said. Alan nodded, but hesitated before reaching for the communication link. This moment would change everything. Once humanity knew for certain that intelligent life existed elsewhere, there would be no going back. "Send it to my station," Lisa said. "I can run it through our translation algorithms." For the next 3 days, Alan and Lisa barely left the lab. They took turns sleeping on the small cot in the break room. The signal continued arriving, growing, more complex with each passing hour. By the 4th day, Lisa made a breakthrough. "It's not just math," she said, excitement making her voice shake. "There's more. Look at these sequences when I map them to visual patterns." The screen filled with strange symbols that gradually arranged themselves into recognizable forms. Circles, lines, and what looked like a map of star systems. "Is that our solar system?" Alan asked, pointing to a familiar arrangement. "I think so, and look." Lisa pointed to a blinking dot at the edge of the map. "Something is coming from here." Alan felt a chill run down his spine. "We need to alert Earth defense." Within 24 hours, their quiet lab became the center of a global storm. Military officials, scientists, and government representatives crowded the small lunar base. Their discovery was too important to trust to communication channels that might be intercepted. Lieutenant Chris Bailey of the North American Space Defense Force arrived with the 3rd transport shuttle. He was young but had serious eyes that had seen action during the resource wars on Mars. "Dr. West," he said, shaking Alan's hand firmly. "I'm here to discuss the outer system anomalies." "What anomalies?" Alan asked. "We've been focused on the signal." Chris glanced around and lowered his voice. "We've detected objects moving at the edge of our solar system, near Pluto's orbit. They're small, but they're not following natural orbits. They change direction." Lisa joined them, carrying data tablets. "You think they're connected to our signal?" "Too much of a coincidence otherwise," Chris said. "The timing matches exactly when you first detected the transmission." That night, after most of the officials had returned to their temporary quarters, Alan, Lisa, and Chris gathered in the main lab. The room was quieter now, but the tension remained. "The signal has changed again," Lisa said, showing them the latest data. "It's becoming more complex but also clearer. I think they're teaching us their language." "Why?" Chris asked, his military training making him suspicious. "Why reach out now? Maybe they detected our deep space transmissions," Alan suggested. "We've been sending signals into space for over 200 years. Or maybe they've been watching us all along," Chris said, "waiting until we reached a certain point." Lisa worked through the night, feeding the new patterns into the translation system. By morning, she had deciphered part of the message. "It's a test," she announced to the room full of bleary-eyed officials. "They're challenging us to prove we're ready for contact." "Ready in what way?" asked the representative from the United Nations. "Technologically? Morally?" Lisa shrugged. "The message isn't that specific yet, but there's a time element here. These patterns suggest we have less than 5 years before something happens." The debate that followed was heated. Some wanted to respond immediately, showing Earth's best face. Others advised caution, even silence. What if this was a trap? What if the message was meant to trigger a response that would reveal Earth's location and capabilities to a hostile force? While the politicians argued, Alan returned to his telescope. The stars looked the same as they always had, but now he saw them differently. Each point of light might be home to watching eyes, to civilizations waiting to see what humanity would do next. Chris joined him at the window. "I've been reassigned," he said quietly. "They're sending me to Pluto base to investigate those objects up close." "Be careful out there," Alan said. "You too. I think we're all stepping into unknown territory now." Chris hesitated. "Whatever we decide to say back to them, it needs to be right. We might only get one chance." As dawn broke over the lunar surface, Alan watched the Earth rise, a blue marble hanging in the blackness. Somewhere down there, people were waking up to a world that was about to change forever. Most didn't know it yet, but soon everyone would be asking the same questions. Who were these beings sending signals across the stars? What did they want from humanity? And the most important question of all, when Earth finally answered, what should they say? Lisa touched his shoulder. "I found something else in the signal, something hidden beneath the main message." "What is it?" Alan asked. "It's hard to be sure, but it looks like a warning. Whatever they're preparing us for, it's coming sooner than we think." As if to confirm her words, all the computers in the lab suddenly lit up with new data. The signal had intensified. They were no longer just being observed. They were being called. 6 months had passed since the discovery of the signal. Winter snow covered the mountains surrounding the secret facility in Colorado, where the newly formed Stellar Response Initiative now operated. Inside, the central meeting room hummed with tension as Commander Samantha Reeves called the team to order. "Let's review what we know," she said, her voice steady despite the lack of sleep evident in the dark circles under her eyes. At 45, Samantha had already led 3 successful Mars missions. Now she faced a challenge far beyond anything in human experience. Alan West and Lisa Gordon sat side by side at the conference table. Their work had become inseparable in recent months, as had their lives. Next to them sat Paul Wright, a diplomat known for resolving the African water conflicts 5 years earlier. His calm demeanor balanced the nervous energy of Maria Diaz, the team's xenobiologist who fidgeted with her tablet stylus. At the far end, Jack Simmons, military strategist and former Navy SEAL, watched everyone with calculating eyes. "The signal now appears in 7 different formats," Lisa explained, projecting the data onto the wall screen. "We've decoded about 60% of it. The mathematical and navigational information was just the beginning." Alan took over. "We believe they're telling us about themselves, their biology, their history. They're giving us a chance to understand them before any physical contact happens." "If it happens," Jack interrupted, "this could still be some kind of trick. Give us knowledge, make us lower our guard." Paul shook his head. "That's human thinking. We can't project our own historical patterns of conquest onto beings that evolved in entirely different conditions. Human thinking is all we have," Jack shot back. Samantha raised her hand to stop the familiar argument. "Maria, what's the status on the biological data?" Maria Diaz stood and replaced Lisa's projection with her own. "This is fascinating. The signal contains what appears to be genetic information, but not based on DNA as we know it. More importantly, there are patterns that match extinction events in Earth's fossil record." A silence fell over the room. "Are you saying they caused those extinctions?" Jack asked, leaning forward. "Not necessarily," Maria replied, "but they knew about them, in detail, which means they've been watching Earth for millions of years." Alan felt Lisa's hand find his under the table. The idea was both thrilling and unsettling. Humanity had never been alone, even in its earliest days. "What about the objects near Pluto?" Samantha asked. A new voice answered from the doorway. "They've moved." Everyone turned to see Chris Bailey, his face gaunt from his long journey back from the outer solar system. He'd lost weight, and something in his eyes had changed. "Lieutenant Bailey," Samantha stood. "We weren't expecting you for another week. I came as soon as I could after—" Chris paused, struggling for words. "After the contact." The room erupted in questions until Samantha called for order. Chris took a seat and explained what had happened near Neptune. His patrol ship had detected one of the objects changing course to intercept him. Against protocol, he had decided to approach it. It was small, maybe 30 feet across, smooth with no visible openings or engines. When I got within half a mile, all my systems went dead. Chris's voice was flat, as if he was reading from a report rather than describing his own experience. Then something connected with me. Not physically. It was like a download directly into my brain. "What did you see?" Maria asked softly. "A war," Chris answered. "Not like our wars. This was across entire star systems, something destroying world after world, and the beings sending the signal, they were fighting it, containing it." "Did you see what they look like?" Lisa asked. Chris shook his head. "Not clearly. But they're old. Their civilization exists across multiple galaxies. They've been fighting this darkness for longer than our species has existed." Jack stood up abruptly. "This changes everything. If there's a galactic conflict, we need to accelerate our defense preparations, or our diplomatic approach," Paul countered. "If they're fighting something worse, we want to be on the right side." The debate continued for hours, with each expert arguing from their perspective. Maria analyzed the biological implications, suggesting the aliens might be concerned about compatibility between species. Paul drafted potential diplomatic responses focused on peaceful cooperation. Jack pushed for military readiness, arguing that Earth needed to project strength. Through it all, Alan and Lisa worked on refining their understanding of the signal itself, certain that the full message held the key to humanity's best response. As evening approached, Samantha called for their final recommendations. "We need more time," Maria said. "We need more defenses," Jack insisted. "We need to show them who we truly are," Paul suggested. Samantha nodded at each, then turned to Alan and Lisa. "And you two? What do the stars tell us to do?" Lisa looked at Alan, who nodded slightly before she spoke. "The signal isn't just information. It's an invitation to join something larger, but it's also a test to see if we're ready." She paused. "We think Earth should respond simply but honestly. Tell them we understand the message, and we're preparing ourselves for whatever comes next." "In other words," Alan added, "we should tell them, we're ready. Are you?" A thoughtful silence followed. Simple but powerful, Paul nodded his approval. "And ambiguous enough to keep our true capabilities unclear," Jack admitted. "Is that our consensus?" Samantha asked, looking around the table. One by one, they nodded. "Then that's our recommendation to the United Nations. Along with this message, we'll send a data package showing our scientific achievements, cultural highlights, and proposed protocols for peaceful interaction." As the meeting ended, unusual reports began coming in from research stations across the solar system. Equipment failures on Mars base, strange energy readings on Saturn's moons, and most disturbing, multiple people reporting identical dreams of stars going dark. Alan found Chris alone in the observation dome later that night, staring at the sky. "There's something else you saw, isn't there?" Alan asked. "Something you didn't tell the others." Chris didn't look away from the stars. "They're not just coming to meet us, Dr. West. They're coming because they need us. Humanity has something they've been looking for. What could we possibly have that beings that advanced would need? I don't know exactly. But in the vision, Earth was special, different from the other worlds." Chris finally turned to face Alan. "And whatever is hunting them across the stars, it's already here. 1 year had passed since the alien signal was first detected. The dry air of the Atacama Desert shimmered with heat as the final preparations were made at Earth's most powerful transmission array. The facility stretched across 5 square miles of Chilean desert. Thousands of dishes pointed at the sky like giant metal flowers seeking the sun. Alan West stood beside Lisa Gordon on the observation platform. Below them, technicians scurried between control stations. This was the day humanity would officially answer the stars. "Are you nervous?" and Lisa asked, her hand finding his. "Terrified," Alan admitted with a small smile, "but also more alive than I've ever felt." In the year since their discovery, their relationship had deepened alongside their work. The intense pressure had pushed them together rather than apart. Now they wore matching silver bands on their fingers, a commitment made 3 months earlier during a rare break from their duties. Commander Samantha Reeves joined them on the platform, her uniform crisp despite the heat. "The United Nations Security Council has given final approval. We transmit in 30 minutes. Any word from the deep space monitoring stations?" Alan asked. Samantha's expression darkened. "That's part of why I came to find you. We've lost contact with 3 stations in the past 6 hours. Europa Base, Titan Research Station, and the Kuiper Belt Outpost." Lisa's grip on Alan's hand tightened. "All at once?" "No. One after another. Like something moving inward through the solar system. The implications hung in the air between them. Whatever was happening, it was deliberate and coordinated." "Should we delay the transmission?" Alan asked. Samantha shook her head firmly. "The opposite. The Defense Council believes we need to establish communication before whatever is out there reaches Earth. We're accelerating the timetable. We transmit in 10 minutes. As Samantha left to oversee final preparations, Paul Wright approached with a tablet in hand. The diplomat looked tired but satisfied. "The final message package is ready for your review," he said, handing the tablet to Lisa. She scrolled through the contents quickly. The work of hundreds of experts had been distilled into a carefully crafted response. Scientific data, cultural samples, and diplomatic protocols all built around the simple core message they had agreed on. "We're ready, are you?" "It looks perfect," Lisa said, passing the tablet to Alan. Paul nodded. Jack wanted more military achievements included, but the council overruled him. They felt it best to emphasize peaceful intentions. "Where is Jack now?" Alan asked. "Overseeing the activation of the orbital defense grid, just in case." The defense grid had been a controversial project, accelerated dramatically after the alien signal was detected. A network of satellites armed with experimental energy weapons now encircled the planet, a shield against unknown threats from the stars. A technician approached and informed them it was time to move to the control center. The final countdown was beginning. The transmission control room was crowded with officials from around the world. Maria Diaz stood next to a bank of monitors displaying biological data. Jack Simmons had arrived, standing stiffly in his military uniform at the back of the room. Paul moved to join a cluster of diplomats near the main console. Commander Reeves took position at the central platform and called for attention. Today marks humanity's first intentional response to confirmed intelligent life beyond our world. Whatever happens next, history will remember this moment. Are there any final concerns before we proceed? No one spoke. The decision had been debated exhaustively for months. It was time. "Begin the transmission," Samantha ordered. A technician pressed the activation sequence. Outside, the massive array of dishes adjusted their positions in perfect unison, all focusing on a single point in the Andromeda Galaxy. The most powerful directed signal ever created by human technology surged outward at the speed of light, carrying humanity's message across the void. "Transmission successful," the lead technician announced. A brief cheer went up from the assembled group. "Now we wait," Lisa whispered to Alan, but they didn't have to wait long. Exactly 7 minutes after the transmission ended, every screen in the control room went dark. Then they all lit up simultaneously, displaying the same image. A star map unlike any they had seen before, with Earth clearly marked at the center. "Is that a response?" someone asked in the stunned silence. Impossible, Alan said. Even at light speed, our message would take years to reach Andromeda. It's not coming from Andromeda, the communications officer reported, voice shaking. This signal is originating from Neptune's orbit. Jack Simmons immediately went to a military communication terminal. Defense grid to full alert. All space forces prepare for. He was cut off as the facility's power system suddenly failed. Emergency lights came on, casting the room in an eerie red glow. Something's approaching Earth, the radar technician called out. Multiple objects moving faster than anything in our database. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, they could see the dish array outside moving again, but not under human control. Each massive antenna turned to a different point in the sky, as if searching for something. Get the backup generators online, Samantha ordered. Restore communications with orbital defense. Before anyone could respond, a blinding light flooded the room. When it faded, a figure stood in the center of the control room. Not solid, but a three-dimensional projection that shifted and flowed like water catching light. Every person froze, in place. The being, if it could be called that, resembled nothing from Earth. It had a form that seemed to change as you looked at it, impossible angles and shapes merging and separating. Then it spoke, not in sound, but directly into their minds. We received your message long ago. We have been waiting for you to be ready. Maria Diaz stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. Ready for what? To join the fight, the being responded. The silence is coming. It has already taken 3 of your outposts. Your weapons cannot stop it. Jack moved protectively toward Samantha. What is the silence? The end of all thought. The enemy of consciousness itself. It has destroyed 1,000 civilizations before yours. Alan found his voice at last. And you need our help? What can we possibly do against something that threatens advanced civilizations? The projection shifted, forming what looked like a double helix but with impossible additional dimensions. Your species evolved differently. Your minds work in ways ours cannot. You see patterns we miss. You imagine solutions we would never consider. Lisa stepped forward to stand beside Alan. You've been watching us for a long time. Since your first ancestors looked up at the stars and wondered what they were, the being confirmed. We have guided your evolution from afar, subtly encouraging the traits that would make you valuable allies. Before anyone could respond to this revelation, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Multiple unidentified objects entering Earth's atmosphere. A technician called out, reading from a portable device. The projection flickered. They have followed us here sooner than expected. Your defense grid will fall within hours. What do we do? Samantha asked, taking command despite her shock. Choose, the being said simply. Fight alongside us against the silence or face it alone. We cannot force your decision. That is why we asked. Are you ready? As the projection faded, the power returned to the facility. Outside, the sky had turned strange colors as objects too fast to track streaked across it. Humanity had sent its message to the stars. Now the stars had answered, and they demanded a choice. 2 years had passed since the alien being appeared in the control room in Chile. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined before first contact. Alan West stood at the window of his office at the new Unified Earth Command headquarters. The sprawling complex had been built in record time on neutral territory in New Zealand. Outside, the green hills rolled toward the ocean under a clear blue sky that seemed too peaceful for the reality they now lived in. The European delegation has arrived, Lisa said as she entered the room. Her hair was shorter now, more practical for their busy lives. A small scar ran along her right cheek, a souvenir from an evacuation during the Sydney incident 6 months earlier. Alan turned from the window and smiled at his wife. Their marriage had weathered the global chaos better than many. Perhaps because they had been at the center of it from the beginning, they had adjusted faster than most. How are the new communication systems performing? He asked. Lisa's face brightened with professional pride. Better than expected. The principles we learned from the Guardian messages have revolutionized our technology. Quantum entanglement communication is now stable across the entire solar system. Distance doesn't matter anymore. Their work together had led to breakthroughs that would have taken decades under normal circumstances. Necessity and alien knowledge had accelerated human progress at an astonishing rate. The door opened again, and Commander Samantha Reeves entered. Now General Reeves, she carried the weight of her new responsibility in the slight stoop of her shoulders, though her eyes remained as sharp and determined as ever. "The Security Council meeting starts in 10 minutes, she said. "We have representatives from every nation and colony. Even Mars Base managed to send someone despite the recent attacks." The three of them walked together through corridors filled with people from around the world. Military personnel in various uniforms mixed with scientists, diplomats, and civilian specialists. 2 years ago, such global cooperation would have seemed impossible. Now it was necessary for survival. The main conference room could hold 500 people. Today it was full to capacity. Paul Wright waved to them from the diplomatic section. His skills had been crucial in forming the new unified Earth government, not a true world government, but a coalition unlike anything that had existed before. "Jack," Simmons nodded curtly from his position with the military leaders. As head of Earth's defense forces, he had been proven right about the need for preparation, though even his most pessimistic predictions had underestimated the threat they now faced. Maria Diaz joined them as they took their seats at the front. "I have news from the biological research team," she whispered. "We've made progress understanding the Guardian physiology. It's unlike anything we imagined." Before she could elaborate, the meeting was called to order. The chairperson, a formerly obscure Norwegian diplomat who had shown remarkable leadership skills during the crisis, stood to address the assembly. 2 years ago, humanity received an invitation and a warning, she began. "We chose to stand with the Guardians against the threat known as the Silence. Today we review our progress and our losses." Screens around the room displayed statistics and images. 3 deep space stations destroyed, 2 attacks on Mars colonies repelled, but with heavy casualties, mysterious electrical failures affecting major cities on Earth, but also new technologies, new understanding of the universe, and new unity among humans. Jack Simmons presented the military situation. "The orbital defense grid has been upgraded with Guardian technology. It has successfully intercepted 3 approach attempts by Silence entities in the past month. Our deep space monitors show increased activity near Saturn, suggesting another push may be coming." Paul Wright reported on diplomatic efforts. "Communication with the Guardian network continues to improve. We now have regular exchanges with 17 different species in their alliance. Many were skeptical about including such a young civilization as ours, but our recent contributions have begun to change minds." Maria presented findings on the nature of their enemy. "The Silence is not a traditional life form as we understand it. Our best theory is that it exists as a pattern that spreads through information systems, including biological ones. It doesn't just kill, it erases. Civilizations that fall to it are not just destroyed, they are forgotten, their achievements and knowledge absorbed and lost." Throughout the presentations, Alan watched the assembly. Fear was visible on many faces, but also determination. Humanity had been forced to grow up quickly, to see beyond national rivalries and cultural differences. In the face of extinction, people had found common ground. When the formal presentations ended, Samantha took the podium. "Now for the most important update. 2 weeks ago, we received a transmission from the Europa exploration team." A murmur ran through the crowd. The mission to Jupiter's moon had been launched after unusual energy readings were detected beneath its icy surface. With communications disrupted by Silence attacks, no one had heard from the team in months. Many had assumed them lost. Lieutenant Chris Bailey and Dr. Maria Diaz's research partner have made a discovery that may change everything. The main screen activated, showing Chris Bailey's face. He looked older, his expression intense as he transmitted from deep space. "What we found isn't a Guardian outpost," he reported, his voice occasionally breaking up despite the new communication system. "It's much older. Some kind of monitoring station that's been here for millions of years. It activated when Earth sent its response message 2 years ago. The camera panned to show a vast chamber carved from Europa's ice and rock. Strange architecture curved in ways that hurt the eyes to follow. At the center stood a pulsing crystal-like structure that emitted soft blue light. The station contains a star map, Chris continued. It shows hundreds of civilizations across our galaxy, those that have risen and fallen over millions of years. He gestured, and the camera zoomed in on part of the map. Earth was clearly marked, with words in an alien script next to it. Our linguists have translated this as emerging potential ally, Chris said. We think this station is part of a network that has been evaluating developing species for eons, looking for particular traits. What traits? Someone called from the audience. Chris's face returned to the screen. Creativity, adaptability, and something the Guardians call productive unpredictability. Apparently humans excel at thinking in ways the older species cannot. Maria Diaz stood. Is the station still operational? Can it help us? More than operational, Chris replied, excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. It's beginning a sequence we don't fully understand yet. Not a weapon, but some kind of revelation. Whatever the Guardians have been preparing humanity for, this is the next step. As Chris spoke, the lights in the conference room dimmed momentarily. Around the world, similar power fluctuations were reported. Something was happening on a global scale. We need more time to understand what... Chris's transmission cut off suddenly. The screen went dark for several seconds, then returned with a simple message in plain text. The test continues. The choice approaches. The observation deck of the United Nations headquarters in New York was filled to capacity. World leaders, scientists, and military commanders stood shoulder to shoulder, all eyes fixed on the sky. Outside, millions of people filled the streets, staring upward with the same mixture of fear and wonder. Alan West and Lisa Gordon stood near the front, their hands clasped tightly together. 5 years had passed since they first detected the signal from Andromeda. 3 years since humanity chose to stand with the Guardians against the silence. Now the moment of truth had arrived. It's starting, Lisa whispered, as the first glimmers appeared in the daytime sky. Across the solar system, the monitoring stations on Europa, Mars, and a dozen other outposts had activated simultaneously 24 hours earlier. From each one rose what scientists were calling quantum nodes, devices that defied conventional physics, seemingly made of living mineral. As they rose into space, they began connecting with Earth's communication networks. General Samantha Reeves approached, her uniform decorated with the insignia of the combined Earth Defense Force. All systems are ready. The planetary shield is at full capacity. Will it be enough? Alan asked quietly. Samantha's expression was grim but determined. Against the silence? No. But it might buy us time for the Guardians' plan to work. On a nearby screen, they could see the feed from Chris Bailey's team on Europa. The ancient monitoring station beneath the ice had transformed, opening chambers that had been sealed for millions of years. Similar reports came from Mars and Venus, where other alien structures had been discovered. They were everywhere, watching us all along, Paul Wright said as he joined them. The diplomat looked exhausted but carried himself with newfound confidence. In recent months, he had become humanity's chief representative to the Guardian Coalition. Not watching, Lisa corrected. Waiting, testing us to see what we'd do when faced with extinction. The screen suddenly flickered. Every communication device on Earth, from the most sophisticated military equipment to civilian phones, displayed the same message. A countdown. 9. 8. Here they come, Jack Simmons said from his position at the defense console. Multiple objects entering the solar system, larger than anything we've encountered before. 7, 6, 5. Maria Diaz rushed into the observation deck clutching a tablet. The biological analysis is complete. We understand now. The silence isn't trying to destroy consciousness, it's trying to harvest it. It feeds on the collective knowledge and experience of entire civilizations. 3, 2, and the Guardians? Alan asked quickly, What do they want from us? Maria's eyes were wide with the implications of her discovery. They don't want anything from us. They want to give us something, a choice. The sky above Earth seemed to fold in on itself. There was no other way to describe it. Space itself rippled like disturbed water, and through that disturbance came ships, hundreds of them, each unique in design, as if built by different species with different concepts of engineering. At the same moment, dark shapes appeared at the edge of the solar system, formless, absorbing all light, moving with terrible their purpose toward Earth. The silence had arrived in force. The quantum nodes positioned throughout the solar system pulsed with energy. Every screen on Earth showed the same image, a being of light that seemed to be composed of multiple forms overlapping. People of Earth, the being spoke in every language simultaneously. We are the Guardian Coalition. For millions of years, we have fought to preserve conscious life against the silence. Now you must make your final choice. The image shifted to show a map of the galaxy with thousands of points of light, each representing a civilization that had joined the coalition. You asked if we were ready. Now we ask you the same question. The silence cannot be defeated through force alone. It can only be transformed through understanding, through connection between different forms of consciousness. The dark shapes drew closer, passing Neptune's orbit. Earth's defense grid activated, firing beams of energy that seemed insignificant against the vastness of the threat. What are they asking us to do? Someone whispered. Maria understood first. The quantum nodes. They're not weapons. They're connectors. They want us to join our consciousness with theirs, to become part of a unified network of minds. We'd lose our independence, Jack argued. No, Lisa said, studying the data streams flowing across her tablet. We'd maintain our uniqueness. That's what they need from us, our human perspective, our different way of seeing problems. The Guardian message continued. The choice must be freely made. Each civilization brings new insights, new patterns of thought. Humanity's greatest strength is your creativity in crisis, your ability to find hope in darkness. Alan looked at the faces around him. People who had been strangers, 5 years ago, now united in purpose. This is what they've been preparing us for. Not to fight for them, but to think with them. Outside, the silence entities began to engage with Earth's defenses. The planetary shield buckled under assaults that seemed to warp reality itself. A historic moment. Representatives from every nation gathered in the United Nations General Assembly chamber. The question before them was simple but profound. Would humanity join its consciousness with the Guardian Network while maintaining its unique identity, or face the silence alone? The debate was brief. The vote unanimous. Alan and Lisa stood side by side at the main communication array as Earth prepared its response. Chris Bailey's voice came through from Europa. The connection points are ready. The Guardian Network is standing by. Samantha gave the final authorization. Send the message. Through the new quantum communication system that Lisa and Alan had helped develop, humanity's response traveled instantly across the stars. We're ready. Are you? The effect was immediate. The quantum nodes throughout the solar system pulsed with brilliant light. Every human felt a moment of expansion, as if their mind had suddenly grown larger, connecting to something vast, yet welcoming. Knowledge flowed into human consciousness, not overwhelming, but integrating. Millions of years of experiences from hundreds of civilizations became accessible, a library of memories and insights that no single species could have accumulated alone. And humanity gave something in return. Human creativity, adaptability, and hope spread through the Guardian Network, bringing new perspectives to ancient minds. In orbit, the silence entities faltered as they encountered not isolated minds to consume, but a connected consciousness that included humanity's unique patterns. For the first time in eons, the silence retreated. As dawn broke over New York, the first Guardian vessels appeared visibly in Earth's orbit, no longer hiding their presence. Their designs incorporated elements from thousands of allied civilizations, including, Alan noticed with wonder, hints of ancient human symbols and patterns. They've been learning from us all along, Lisa said softly. Just as we've been learning from them. And now? Alan asked. On the horizon, the sun rose on humanity's first day as citizens not just of Earth, but of a galactic community they were only beginning to understand.